Well, hello! It's finally time for me to sit down and talk about all of the sushi that I tried on my DIY Anchorage sushi tour while I was in Anchorage. If you know anything about me, you know that sushi is one of my very favorite foods and I simply cannot get enough of it. And if you know anything about Anchorage, specifically the Anchorage food scene, you know that they've got a really incredibly diverse food scene. They've got just about everything in Anchorage and their sushi options are bountiful. So I made a spreadsheet. I did not try all of them. I did try most of them. So I have built out a Google sheet and I have implemented a point system. So there are 40 possible points for each sushi place that I tried. I'm going to be going through chronologically just because that's the order that I have them in. Spoiler alert, I do have 2 places on this list that have a perfect score, and I've got a couple of places that are near perfect score. Most of these places are really excellent. There were only a couple that I didn't enjoy my experience at. We'll get there, but we're going to go through pros and cons and then the points for each one. So the different points categories are parking, because that's important, the ambience of the restaurant, the variety of the menu. Do they only have sushi? Do they have a lot of sushi rolls that are like options? Do they have hot pot or other like options like ramen maybe on the menu? The sushi itself, the speed at which the sushi was delivered, and then the value that I personally perceived in the cost, the sushi, and then the total experience. I've given parking, ambiance, speed, and value each 5 possible points, and then the menu variety and sushi are both worth 10 points, 10 possible points. So I have been to Anchorage before, and I have tried some of these sushi restaurants before, and I tried really hard to judge each restaurant based solely on my experience this particular time. So the very first sushi place that I tried on this trip was OEC Revolving Sushi Bar. I had never been to a revolving sushi bar. Well, I'd been to this restaurant before, but I've never experienced like the conveyor belt sushi. That was a really unique experience. I gave this place an overall score of 35 points, 5 points for parking, 4 for ambiance, 9 points for menu variety, 9 points for the sushi itself, 5 points for speed, and 3 points for value. So the pros I have for OEC, I have that it's great for variety. If you want to try a bunch of different things, but you don't want to order a bunch of different rolls, you just want a few bites of each one, this is great for that. It's also really great for what I would consider maybe a smaller appetite. Let's say you want to eat, less than 1 sushi roll. Each plate is going to have anywhere between 2 and 4 pieces of sushi on it. So you can just have like a couple of pieces and or a couple of plates, and then you're not ordering a whole sushi roll. It's also probably a really good place for individual solo travelers, that sort of thing, like single diners. Just because you, again, don't have to order a whole sushi roll or multiple sushi rolls. You can just get like the plates as they come. They do also, however, have the menu that you can order off of with lots of, sushi options, and you can get, some other foods too. And so it's not just the conveyor belt bringing sushi to you. There were a lot of options here. I thought it was a great experience. I will say the only con I have here is that it was, I don't want to call it slow. There was a table that was like in front of us on the conveyor belt, because I went with my friends Adam and Sherry, and so there was a table that got the food on the conveyor belt before us. It was a larger group, and so they would kind of almost clear out the conveyor belt before we were able to get anything. So the sushi was coming out quickly, but it kind of depends on the people around you and how everybody's going. So it can be a little bit slow, or kind of a game almost to try to get the food that you want to try. And I would also say that a revolving sushi bar is probably not the greatest option for large groups, just because they are small plates, which can make it difficult to share among a large group. If you've got more than 3 or 4 people and you're only, getting 2 to 4 pieces of sushi on a plate, just think about that. So OEC Revolving Sushi Bar I liked, and I would go back. The next one I tried was Jimmy's Asian Food Restaurant, and this one I gave 33 out of 40 points. 5 points for parking, 4 points for ambiance, 9 points for menu variety. I gave this one 8 points for the sushi, because one of my rolls was like falling apart when I was trying to eat it, and that's just not my favorite experience. 3 points for speed and 4 points for value. So I thought they had a really good variety on their menu, and their specialty rolls were like really unique and very cool. My cons here was that it was a little bit slow, to the point that I actually wondered if the server had forgotten to place the order for 2 rolls, or if there had been a misunderstanding, because like she brought me 1, and I ordered 2 rolls at each place just because, you know, I like variety, and I was eating them for lunch, and then I would take the leftovers home and eat the leftovers for dinner, or like for lunch the next day. So I had ordered 2 rolls, but the second one took so long to come out that I actually didn't think that it had been ordered at the bar at all. So that was my only con for Jimmy's. I've been to Jimmy's before. I've had great experiences there. It was a weird time of day that I was there, so maybe that was why. But I would think if they're not busy, it should be a little bit faster. But it wasn't a big deal. Number 3 is called Yaki Shabu Sushi House. And this is one of the 2 places on my list that has a perfect score. Parking was a 5, ambiance was a 5, menu variety was 10, sushi was 10, speed was 5, value was 5. They had a really nice ambiance inside. It was spacious, not crowded. It didn't feel overly cluttered, but it also had like a distinct theme. The sushi I had was excellent. They had a really good variety on the menu of different sushi, and then they also had hot pot in the restaurant, like, so you could sit at the table and cook your food, which is really cool. And I had no cons for this one. I really liked it. I thought the rolls were priced fairly. Of course, it's Anchorage, so things are going to be just a little bit more expensive there than anywhere else. But saying that, there are a couple of places on this list that felt like they were priced a little bit unfairly. And we'll get to those. The 4th place on the list is Riharu Sushi. This one has an overall score of 37 points, 5 for parking, 5 for ambiance, 9 for menu variety, 9 for the sushi, 4 for speed, and 5 for the value. I felt that Riharu has a really nice ambiance with lots of seating. They have an excellent variety for their sushi and other meal options. I personally sat at the sushi bar and I received excellent service. I don't have any real cons for this one, but compared with other options in the same geographical area in Anchorage, this one is just slightly lower on my list than a couple of the other places. So this one's actually really close to Yaki Shabu, and there's another place that we'll talk about later that actually, it's the other one that has the perfect score, and they're almost right next to each other. If I had to choose between the 2, I would choose the other one. Not that Riharu is bad. It's not. It's very good. Okay, the next one is called Ronnie Sushi, and this one is actually the sushi place that's closest to Adam and Sherry's house, which is where I was staying when I was up there, and I gave Ronnie an overall score of 33 points. 5 for parking, 5 for ambiance, 8 for menu variety, 8 for the sushi, 3 for speed, and 4 for value. The Ronnie roll. It is excellent. It is so good. I don't even know what the sushi roll is. I think it's probably like a shrimp tempura roll. It's not fancy. But on top of it, they put this enormous mound of like bulgogi beef with like sriracha and thinly sliced garlic. I'm like salivating thinking about it. It's so good. When I go with my friends Adam and Sherry, Sherry doesn't like spicy. So we get the spicy, they call it a spicy dot. They put the sriracha on the side, and it's still good. But gosh, it's incredible. So they've got a really good menu, lots of variety. I really like this sushi place. I'm trying not to be jaded by like previous experiences there, because it is the place that I've eaten the most of all of these places. So I really do love this sushi place, but it was a little bit slow. I was there in the middle of the afternoon, so it was like between the lunch and dinner rush. There were a few other tables, but it was by no means like full. So it was a little bit slower than I would have liked. And the day that I went, now I'm hoping they have this fixed, but the day I went, their credit card machine was down, so it just made paying a little bit more difficult, which, you know, did kind of slow me down. So I'm taking a little bit of points off for that. However, I do really like Ronnie, and if you're in the area, it's like in Sand Lake or Jewel Lake or whatever. If you're over in that area, Ronnie Sushi is great. Try the Ronnie roll. It's very good. Up next is Sushi Motto. Sushi Motto got an overall score of 30 points from me. I gave them 5 points for parking, 5 points for ambiance, 7 points for menu variety, 8 points for the sushi, 3 points for speed, and 2 points for value. I thought their sushi was decent. They had a decent sushi menu, and they had a few other options as well, including hot pot. They just had what I would consider like a limited or somewhat limited menu specifically for sushi rolls. The rolls they had were good, they just didn't have lots and lots of options. For my cons here, I noted that the sushi was unremarkable. It wasn't bad, it wasn't excellent, it was fine, but I thought it was a little on the pricey side, especially when compared with some other options in the area. I would go back to this restaurant, but it wouldn't be my first choice. So again, not a bad option, just not my first choice. There are others that I would pick over this one. Up next we have Dami Japanese Restaurant. This one received an overall score of 27 points. I gave them 2 for parking, 4 for ambiance, 7 for menu variety, 8 points for their sushi, 4 points for speed, and 2 points for value. The location is probably the biggest draw for this one for me. So where Dami is located, if you're coming back into Anchorage from Palmer, Wasilla, Eagle River, it's on that northeast side of Anchorage. So it's very convenient for that part of town. And that's my biggest pro for this one, is where it's located in town. For the cons for this place, I wrote that they have small rolls, so I didn't think that the value was there, especially, for me particularly. There was a small camp of homeless people in the parking lot, which kind of made this option feel a little bit less safe. I was there in broad daylight, so it was probably fine, but comparatively not my favorite experience, and I don't know that I feel like I have to go back, just because it's located in a place that's not exactly convenient for where I was staying in Anchorage. So, I had to kind of plan to go there on a day that I was coming back into town from being in a different area. But yeah, not my favorite experience. Up next we have Sushi Garden, which received an overall score of 35 points from me. I gave them 5 points for parking, 5 points for ambiance, 8 points for their menu variety, 9 points for their sushi, 4 points for speed, and 4 points for value. For my pros, I wrote that this is a nice option on the south side of Anchorage. They've got good rolls, excellent service. They really do have excellent service. They give you hot towels and soup and salad. And then at the end of the meal, they gave me this incredible cinnamon tea to finish the meal. It was delicious. So the value was there because the rolls were big, but also because you get all of this other stuff, with your meal. So far, the only place that I did not get miso soup was OEC at the Revolving Sushi Bar. I don't think I got miso soup there, but I did get miso soup at every other restaurant that I've talked about so far. For Sushi Garden, for the cons, I wrote that I don't have any real cons with this one. Again, it's just a little bit out of the way. Up next is Kumagoro. I gave this one an overall score of 24 points. I gave them a 1 for parking, we'll get into that, a 3 for ambiance, 7 for menu variety, 9 for sushi, 2 for speed, and 2 for value. I wrote that the biggest pro for this one is that they had the best heart attack roll that I tried while I was on this sushi tour. If you don't know what a heart attack roll is, I didn't know either until I started doing the sushi tour, and I happened to see them, I think the first time I had one was at Sushi Motto, and I liked it. And then I had a couple of others, but Kumagoro had the very best heart attack roll in Anchorage that I tried. And if you don't know what it is basically a jalapeno popper. So it's a jalapeno filled with cream cheese, topped with spicy tuna, and then tempura battered and fried. And then sliced in half. And it is incredible. And Kumagoro's was amazing. Another pro that I have for Kumagoro is that it is a nice location for people who are visiting Anchorage. They're staying in town, especially downtown, and you're not renting a car, you can walk there. So Kumagoro is located right downtown. As a direct result of the downtown location, there's not great parking at Kumagoro. They do have street parking, and there is like small lots kind of located around downtown most of the time these things are paid. I think there are certain times of the week, certain days of the week maybe, that downtown street parking is free. Just, consider that. But I also found the sushi to be a poor value when compared with the prices of sushi elsewhere in town. I think generally, as a rule, downtown restaurants tend to be priced at a premium. So if you're not renting a car, maybe it's worth it to you to not have to go anywhere, not rent an Uber or rent a car. But for me personally, since I was like staying in town and I had a car, it just kind of wasn't my favorite place. There is another sushi place that it's downtown. I've been before. I did not go on this trip. It's called Arctic Sushi, and it's another one, again, located downtown. It just seemed overpriced for what it was, probably because it's located downtown. Up next we have Tempura Express. I gave this one an overall score of 23 points. I gave them a 5 for parking, 2 for ambiance, 4 for menu variety, 8 for their sushi, 2 for speed, and 2 for value. Tempura Express would be a great option for people, especially in East Anchorage, because that's where this is located, if you're trying to order like takeout sushi. They seemed to do a lot of takeout sushi orders. This is a no table service restaurant, so it's kind of like a quick service restaurant. You walk up, you order, you pay, and then you can either sit down or take it to go. But you order and you pay for your food before you get to eat it. So it kind of feels almost like fast food, except it wasn't really fast. The service wasn't bad and the menu wasn't confusing. However, when I went to order, there were items on the menu that the things that I ordered first, she said, we don't have those. I'm like, okay. So then I asked her, what do you have? And she said, everything except those. And so I'm like, okay, an indicator, on the menu would be cool, but it just was kind of an uncomfortable experience. So not bad, but I probably wouldn't go back just because it's located on the other side of town. There are other places that I would go first. Up next is Sushi Ya. I gave Sushi Ya an overall score of 37 points. They got 5 for parking, 5 for ambiance, 9 for menu variety, 10 points for their sushi, 4 points for their speed, and 4 points for overall value. This is a really good location. If you know where Moose's Tooth is in Anchorage, that's essentially right where Sushi Ya is. It's very close. You can see Moose's Tooth from the parking lot at Sushi Ya. I thought the ambiance was lovely. I've been here before. I don't remember it looking like this, but the design inside kind of feels directly inspired by authentic Japanese styling. It gave each booth a lot of privacy, and then of course they had like beautiful blown glass ornaments, which was really cool. Does that add a lot of value to the sushi? No, but it made the dining experience a little more pleasant. The service was excellent and the sushi was absolutely spectacular. And the miso soup was good too. The only con I have listed here is that it seemed a little bit slower than I would have liked, but that's because they were so busy. So while I was parking, I noticed the parking lot was full. I walked in and I had to wait for a table. It was a weird time of day that I was there, and it was the only sushi place that I ever had to wait for a table. So that was the only experience that I had, that the sushi restaurant was full of people and, people just kept coming in. So they were very busy. So of course the sushi was going to be a little bit slower, but still, I really enjoyed this sushi place. Would 100% go back and definitely recommend. The next place is our other perfect score restaurant. So this one is located basically right next door to Riharu. I think there's like, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile between these two places. They're really close to each other. So this one is called Miso Japanese Sushi and Bar. I gave Miso a perfect score, 5 points for parking, 5 for ambiance, 10 points for menu variety and sushi, and then 5 points for speed and value. Their sushi was excellent. They've got a nice ambiance, very good service. I did sit at the sushi bar, and I really liked how they broke out the menu. So they had the different styles of sushi roll broken out, so you could very easily find what you were looking for. There were a couple of other restaurants that did this, but Miso did it the best. Because a couple of the other sushi restaurants that did it, I noticed that there were rolls in the wrong place, or there was overlap and it just kind of didn't make logical sense to put them where they were on the menu, but I really enjoyed miso. No cons for miso sushi. It was excellent. Next up is Ichiban Japanese restaurant. So I actually tried going to Ichiban earlier in my trip, like I think maybe the first day that Adam and Sherry were gone. And I walked up and they had a sign on the door basically saying we're closed for renovations. So I left, I went somewhere else, and then I went back later in the trip and they had like a total makeover inside the place. I have been to Ichiban before, but here's my total score for Ichiban was 35 points. I gave them 5 for parking, 4 for ambiance, 8 for menu variety, 9 for sushi, 4 for speed, and 5 for value. So Ichiban has the very best sushi deal in town, which is called their family boat. And with that on the menu, I did not do this because I was by myself. I just ordered 2 sushi rolls. However, on their menu, and I have done this before, you can pick any 5 rolls on their menu, any 5 that are under $20. And if you order this as part of their family boat, you get 5 rolls under $20 for $60. So 5 rolls for $60. So that's a great deal. It's kind of neat, and I have done it before with my friends, and it still is the best deal in town that I've been able to find. Other pros, really good service, and then they just had that makeover inside and it was beautiful. And my server was actually the one who had painted the inside, and it wasn't just like she had slapped paint on the wall. She had actually drawn beautiful like Japanese cats. It was really cool. My cons here, it was just a little bit slow, and maybe their menu had just a couple of fewer rolls than some other places, but still, I would go back here in a heartbeat. And if I had, a few friends that wanted to split a sushi boat, this is the very first place I would think of to take them. If I'm gonna go out with friends for sushi, if it's not just me or just me and like one other person, if I think we're gonna be able to eat 5 sushi rolls, we're going there. Up next, we have Samurai Sushi. I gave Samurai 34 points, 5 points for parking, 3 points for ambiance, 9 points for menu variety, 8 points for sushi, 5 points for speed, and 4 points for value. So Samurai is one of very few sushi restaurants located in East Anchorage. There's actually a restaurant called Ronnie Sushi, and it's literally like across the street from Samurai, which is kind of funny to me. I've not eaten at Ronnie Sushi. But the sushi was made pretty well, and it was super fast, which I really enjoyed. They weren't busy. I sat at the sushi bar, but still I was surprised by how fast the sushi came out. So it was a good experience. The only con I have for this one is the distance from where I was staying. So I was staying in a different part of Anchorage. If I happened to be staying in East Anchorage, then I would probably go here. But it's not the kind of sushi place that I would travel for. If I was in the area, I would eat there and I would have a good time. But I just wouldn't drive all the way there when there's so many other options closer to where I was staying. Our second to last place is called Silk Restaurant and Sushi Bar, and I gave them 29 points. 5 for parking, 3 for ambiance, 7 points for menu variety, 8 for sushi, 3 for speed, and 3 for value. Silk is located near Wild Scoops in Midtown, so you could make a really great date night, go get sushi and then get ice cream. And that's probably my biggest pro for this place. It wasn't bad. It was a weird experience. I went at a weird time of day. I was the only one in the restaurant. When I got there, I couldn't tell if they were open or not. They had the open sign on in the window. Nobody greeted me when I walked in. A few of the tables were dirty. And it's funny because when she finally greeted me, she sat me at one of the dirty tables and then proceeded to clean it while I was sitting there. I did ask if they were open, and they both said that yes, they were open. But then after I had ordered my sushi, the sushi chef, who was in the sushi bar in the middle of the restaurant, was kind of loudly complaining that it was interrupting her lunch break. It was just a really awkward experience, so I don't feel the need to go back to this one. So unfortunately, we're not going to end this sushi tour on a high note. The last place I went was called Sushi and Sushi, and I gave them 24 points for their overall score. I gave them 5 for parking, 4 for ambiance, 6 for menu variety, 6 for their sushi, a 1 for speed, and a 2 for value. For pros, these are my notes. Trying to think of something good to say about this one is tricky because it was the last one I tried and it was my worst experience. The ambiance was nice and seemed very upscale. So those are my pros for Sushi and Sushi. So let's get into the cons and why their score is so low. The server forgot to put the order in. They did give an order of pot stickers to try to compensate for that, but the service was still lacking even after they realized that the order had not been placed. There were several tables that had been seated after me, and they all sat down. A couple of them were larger groups, and they all sat down after me, placed their order after I had, and then received their sushi and ate their sushi while I was still waiting for food. And servers were walking by all the time to deliver food to other tables and never noticed that, like, the menu was gone from my table and there was no food in sight. It was very weird. The menu at Sushi and Sushi also seemed really, really limited, especially when I compare it with other sushi restaurants in town, especially restaurants like in that area. It's another one of those places I don't feel compelled to go back to. So if you want to know my top 5, tied for first place is Yaki, Shabu, and Miso. They both had perfect scores with 40 points each. In our next spot, we have Riharu and Sushi Ya, both tied at 37 points. And then I've got 3 places with 35 points, and that is Ichiban, Sushi Garden, and OEC. So that wraps up my Anchorage sushi tour. I had the time of my life filming this video and eating basically nothing but sushi for a month straight. It's one of my favorite foods. I'm still not sick of it. If somebody said they were going to take me out for sushi tonight, I would happily go. But if you live in Anchorage, have been to Anchorage, and have had sushi anywhere, I would love to know where your favorite sushi spot in Anchorage is. It's hard for me to pick a favorite, you know? There's some really good ones, lots of really good ones, and just a couple that I feel like I can boot off the list that I don't have to go back to, which is not bad when there's, 20 plus sushi restaurants in town. So anyway, that's it for today. I think that's actually going to wrap up our Alaska series. Tomorrow is our travel day home from Anchorage to Orlando. You can see I'm already here. I'm filming this at home, but tomorrow I will be posting the travel day, and then we're gonna start vlogging here at home. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my Alaska series. You guys will see me in another video really soon. Bye.